This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News. I'm Sophie Ikenye. Our top stories. An international conference commits to a decade of action to end gender-based violence and strengthen reproductive health rights. We speak to victims of sexual violence in Western Kenya who say they are being denied the justice they deserve. As Zimbabwe announces its budget, we have a special report from Harare where hospitals are shut and people are on the brink of starvation. South African Airways cancels weekend flights ahead of a planned workers' strike from Friday. Also in the program, Africa in Focus, we talk to the first African winner of one of the world's most prestigious photography awards. And in sports, more 2021 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers today, with holders Algeria, Zambia and South Africa all in action. Egypt are without Mo Salah. Thanks for joining us on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. Completely ridding the world of gender-based violence, harmful cultural practices, and removing barriers to contraception. Those are some of the commitments that have been made at an international conference on population and development. Over 9,000 delegates attended the Nairobi conference, and they're calling this the Decade of Action. More than 1,200 financial and political commitments have been made in the past 3 days, with more expected to come. Different governments are aiming to work together. For example, Uganda, Somalia, Kenya and Tanzania have pledged to tackle cross-border female genital mutilation. Now, one of the most important actions identified is reforming policy systems which enforce laws. For every case of gender-based violence reported in Africa, many more go unreported because women face challenges accessing justice. Well, one such example is in Western Kenya, where victims' families prefer to reach out-of-court settlements with offenders. The BBC's Mercy Juma travelled to Busia to find out what's going on.
Mary, not her real name, goes about her daily chores. This 9-year-old was sexually assaulted by her grandparents' gardener in February this year. I spoke to Mary's grandmother, who asked not to be identified.
In hospital, she was given medication to take for 28 days to prevent HIV infection.
Mary's case is one of many in this part of Kenya. This is Busia, a bustling town sitting in the border with Uganda. Business is thriving here, but this is also a highly patriarchal society where women have no say on many social issues. Over the past year, cases of sexual assault against girls and women have more than doubled. These should be handled by the courts, but in reality, out-of-court settlements are the norm, where the victims' voices are ignored.
If we arrest that man and he dies in police custody, they will say I am the cause. The curse will remain here. We would rather talk, we agree upon ourselves, and the matter ends here. Even when you walk in the village, the people point fingers and say, "Why have you arrested someone else's son? Yet the girl is okay and has no complications." All blame comes back to me.
I have come to a home where there is a family meeting going on to solve a sexual assault case at the family level. In this instance, the victim and the offender are immediate cousins. Paul and Peter, not their real names, are brothers. Paul's 23-year-old son sexually assaulted Peter's 15-year-old daughter.
He took her to a sugarcane plantation and raped her.
Truly, my brother, my son wronged you. I don't have much to say. Just give me a fine to pay.
Outside the door, the victim listens as a decision is being breached about her by her elderly male relatives. Her voice does not matter. Mary Makoha runs a child protection program in Busia County. She says she receives almost every day a case involving a minor girl, some involving children as young as 9 months old.
It has become so normalized. You go to a village And the people in the village will tell you, oh, that one is known for this character. He defiles children. We know, it is so normal. It is so, and they'll even count for you how many were given cows, how many were given goats, how many were given grain in exchange for justice for a child.
Police say their efforts to help victims get justice are many times frustrated by uncooperative family members of the victims.
The cases which are investigated and taken to court, the ones which go up to the conviction is 3 out of 10. When parents are compromised and there is no appearance of the victim, police are put in a very awkward situation by the court because the court may not understand where the victim is or the circumstance leading to the failure of the victim to appear in court.
So while sex offenders and some parents turn this into a trade, many children who are the victims are left with lifelong scars, forced to live near those who stole their childhood with no prospect of justice. Masi Juma, BBC News, Busia.
Well, let's bring in Angela Nguku, a Kenyan maternal health advocate. Thanks for taking time to talk to us on Focus on Africa. We'll talk about the conference in a moment, but first let's focus on this story from Busia. How do you even begin to change the minds of those victims' families?
I think to me it's quite easy, and I think it's a high time that we realize or looked at enforcing the laws and the policies that exist. Because as much as we have laws and policies that exist that enforce, the Sexual Offences Act is in place. We have many policies and laws in place, but they are not implemented. And I think it's an element of communities not knowing what is their right, or their cultural or religious barriers stopping them from actually realizing those rights. Listening to that case, those cases, it's not just in Busia or in Kenya alone. There are many places, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, where this is happening. But I think unless we see that action and will from the people who are supposed to be enforcing the law, and everyone comes on board, communities, not just families, because these are rights, these are individuals, these are countrymen with rights and obligations, and the country has obligation to respond to the needs of those people. I think that needs to go beyond family. To me, it's not just about family, but it's about a government protecting its people and the laws that are in place, ensuring that those laws are actually enforced and action is taken against, including those families that are actually perpetuating the same. All right,
Angela, there's a lot of angles to look at. You're talking about law enforcement and also talking about the cultural issues. Today, the conference you attended has ended, and there were plenty of commitments that were made. They all zeroed in on the 000, zero gender violence, zero maternal deaths, zero harmful cultural practices. Are we assured that this will be achieved by 2030, the target?
Well, let me say that I've been living in a decade, or in decades, where so much commitments have been done, and so much has not been done. So there are commitments in place, but nothing has been done. But since they have come together again and said this is a decade of action, we want the 000, zero maternal mortality, zero gender-based violence, zero unmet need for contraception. It is my hope that this time, actually, this is going to be lived. So for me, what I'm looking at is political will and action, and also a mobilized communities to be able to hold their governments to account, because a lot of times governments have made commitments and made it like a privilege that citizens should just listen, and they are pathetic to the issues that are in place. But the same commitment should actually be made clear to the citizenry and to the people who are concerned, so that they can be able to hold governments to account to walk the talk, because a lot of times there has been talk but no action. And I'm just hoping and believing that we come the next 10 years, we are coming back to actually look back and say the commitments have been followed through. So the follow through lies squarely on not just the governments, but also the citizens. And they can only do that when there's literacy on these commitments, and they know that they have rights to the same.
So commitment is required. Angela Nguku, thank you very much indeed for taking time to talk to us on Focus on Africa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, it's the worst economic collapse Zimbabwe has known for years. Hospitals are shut, and nearly half of the population is on the brink of starvation. The solution, tax cuts for consumers and companies, were announced in today's budget. But will that be enough? The BBC's Shinga Enyoka looks at the impact of Zimbabwe's failing economy and what it's having on ordinary people.
This should be one of Harare's busiest clinics. But the economic crisis has brought the public health system to its knees. Nurses say they can't afford to come to work, and patients are paying the price. Normally, this clinic would be a hive of activity. It serves about 100,000 people in the community, but there's only one qualified nurse at work, and so everyone is being turned away. The sick are not sure where to turn for help. Baby Sibangaliso has the flu. Her mother tells me there was no help here.
There's no medicine.
For others, the consequences are far worse. This woman didn't want to be identified. Her niece had died of heart failure a few hours before. They can't bury her as no doctors are around to certify her death.
But we couldn't take her to the clinic, to the cancer clinics, because the clinics, they are closed. And also the hospitals like Harare Hospital, there are no doctors there. So after 2 days, she passed away.
For over 2 months, hundreds of doctors have been on strike. Triple-digit inflation has slashed their salaries by 80%.
At the moment, yes, you can see that we've got nothing from in our fridges.
Dr. Prince Butao has now been fired. He wasn't only after better pay.
The government were turning a blind eye on those issues that we were raising. We just given promises that the government has acquired about 5 million United States dollars worth of medicine, but there was nothing in the hospitals. People were just dying, and people they are still dying at the moment.
The health system is just one symptom of the wider collapse. From fuel queues to shortages of cash and power, only 1 in 5 people have formal jobs. The government blames Western economic sanctions, but its critics say rampant corruption, failed policies, and excessive spending are to blame. Just 2 years ago, President Emmerson Mnangagwa deposed Robert Mugabe. His presidency was greeted by optimism and celebration. He pledged to set Zimbabwe on a new path to prosperity. But the reality is that life has worsened. At a township on the outskirts of Harare, it's plain to see. Thousands queue for food handouts. Half of the population is in need of food aid, compounded by the worst drought in living memory. And even the most vulnerable don't always get it. 72-year-old Scholastica Nyamayaro is one of them. She collects discarded plastics to try to sell to buy medication and food. How much do these cost?
$2 US.
And where did you get the money from to buy them?
I just ask some people if they can give me money.
So how does that make you feel when you have to ask people?
I have to cry.
You know, some of these stories are just, you know, as a journalist, you have to be detached, but just some of these stories are just so difficult to hear. The government has asked for more time to improve the economy, but for many people like Scholastica, time is running out. Shinganyoka, BBC News, Harare.
This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News. Still to come in sports, we hear from the Burundian refugee hoping to be the next big thing in British football. I'm Sophie Ikenye, and you're watching Focus on Africa from BBC World News. Now, if you're planning to travel with South African Airways this weekend, you may want to think again. The airline has cancelled all domestic and international flights scheduled for Friday and Saturday ahead of a planned workers' strike, which was called after the airline cut more than 900 jobs in order to curb losses. The BBC's Umani Mkize reports.
Last-minute talks between unions representing workers at SAA and the troubled national carrier have broken down, meaning that from tomorrow, flights will be grounded. Around 3,000 of the airline's 5,000-strong workforce will tomorrow down tools. They are essentially demanding an 8% increase. The airline is offering 5.9%, and they are also protesting against the airline's proposed restructuring plan, which will see around 900 workers lose their jobs. The financials for the troubled national carrier don't look particularly good. The Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni, announced at his medium-term budget speech last month that there are essentially zero prospects for the company to ever return to profitability. And for aviation experts, they state that this strike could be potentially damaging and that it might never recover from it.
The risk at SAA, of course, is very large. If workers go on strike, it will not be possible to fly aeroplanes. That might be the last straw that breaks the camel's back. The risk is really as big as SAA going into liquidation and all the people at SAA losing their jobs.
Besides the strike action, the problems at SAA are vast. The company doesn't have a permanent CEO. It hasn't filed financial results for the past 2 years. It currently survives on government bailouts, which have amounted to over $2 billion over the past 13 years. Now, workers at the company say that they are being made to suffer for management's consistent and persistent failings, and that is why they're embarking on the strike tomorrow.
Umanim Kiza reporting there. You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. Let's find out what's happening in the world of sport. Peter.
Thanks, Sophie. And listen up, because you're going to like this. Now, the road to Cameroon 2021 is well and truly underway. In a moment, we'll bring you all the results from Wednesday's games. But first, there are 7 more games today. 3 of them are just coming to an end. Egypt playing without Mo Salah are being held by Kenya. The score there is 1-0. Mozambique are leading Rwanda by 2-0. And surprise, surprise, Togo are losing 1-0 at home to the Comoros Island. Algeria, who are the holders against 2012 winners Zambia in just over an hour, along with 3 other matches. In Wednesday's games in Group L, Nigeria survived an early scare from Benin to win 2-1 at home. The youngster Victor Osimhen scoring a penalty in that game. In the group's other match, it finished 1-1 between Sierra Leone and Lesotho. But the shock result of match day 1 came from Gambia, who beat Angola 3-1 away in Luanda. A big, big win for the Scorpions. Congratulations to all their fans. Now, Falon Sumali is a refugee from Burundi living here in the United Kingdom. While growing up in East Africa, she played football for top teams in 3 different countries. Today, the 23-year-old is one of a handful of African women pursuing a football career here in the UK. She's currently with 4th-tier side Bradford City Women Football Club.
This is a special opportunity to play in England. I am motivated to work hard here so that those who are looking up to me back home can say, Fallon has worked hard and has made it. We can too. As soon as we settled in Bradford, I inquired if there was a women's football team. I was told about Bradford City Women. I went onto YouTube to learn more about them. I was impressed by the quality of football, and I knew I had the skills to play in that team. All I needed was someone to introduce me to them. The caseworker wrote to Bradford City Women FC, telling them that there is a refugee here from Burundi who's a footballer. Would you allow her to come to one of your training sessions and try her out? They replied and said, no problem, let her come. If she is good, fine. Sawa.
She's great on the ball and she's quick, so as a centre forward, that's what you look for. It's great to have her around the team and show that, you know, no matter where you are or who you are in the world, you can make it and do something.
I have the ability to take this team far, but my dream is to become a great player and play for the great teams in this country. While you are still working, you can't say you have succeeded. The successful ones are people like Lampard, Zidane, Pele, Maradona, Eto'o, and Drogba. They have made it. They are now retired and can look back and say, I was successful. For me, I'm only starting. Hopefully, I will be able to look back one day and say I have been successful.
We definitely wish her all the best. Let's talk Olympics now. And Dakar, Senegal will host the 2022 Youth Olympiad. And IOC President Thomas Bach has been on a tour of the city today to inspect the growing Olympic complex. He was shown the Dakar's 50-meter swimming pool and aquatic center. He also took part in some dancing at the famous Dakar beach, where he saw demonstrations in taekwondo, fencing and karate. He was also awarded the title of Commander of the Ordre National du Lion at the presidential villa by the president of Senegal, Macky Sall. Next, he's off to Nigeria and Cameroon. What do you make of his dancing?
Let's not talk about that, Peter. Thanks for the sport. Thank you. Now, she's African, female, and has an eye for photography. Joanna Chumali has become the first African photographer to win the Prix Pictet Prize. It's one of the world's leading awards for photography and sustainability. 600 photographers were nominated for this year's theme of hope, and Joanna beat them all with her series called Ça va aller, or It Will Be Okay, her response to the March 2016 terrorist attacks at the Grand Bassam beach in Ivory Coast. Well, I'm delighted to have Joanna with me in studio. Thanks for taking time to talk to us on Focus on Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
And it was quite an emotional moment for you when you went to receive the award.
Yes,
so what was going on inside of you?
Really, the first thought that I had was for my daughter. She's 18 years old, and I was like, oh, she will see me win something. She will know that it's not happening to someone else. We can achieve this as well.
So you had all those tears streaming down your... I saw the footage today and I thought, wow, this must be something really significant for you.
Yes, I was not prepared to that. I was really emotional. I was really overwhelmed with gratitude, but also I was thinking about my family, my country, and the victims of the terrorist attack in Grand Bassam. So it was a very special moment for me.
All right. You've aligned your photography with embroidery, two sets of skills telling a story in a different style. Embroidery, photography, how did you come about this idea?
It came from a personal need to redraw over my pictures. The pictures were shot with iPhone, and I printed the pictures on canvas, and I started embroidering as a way to repair, so at some point repair a situation, ease the pain. And
it was therapeutic for you.
Yes, it was meditative and therapeutic.
I saw some of your photos, like this one behind us. What is this and what does it depict really?
It's a scene from Grand Bassam. These people were aware that I was taking their photos. And what I saw from these pictures was the fact of being alone together, the way we do not address sometimes trauma, we don't talk about it. That's why the series is called Ça va aller, because Ça va aller means it will be okay. It's a way to shorten a conversation, an uncomfortable conversation, and you know, it's a way to be positive, but at the same time avoid to express our feelings. So these three people, they are together, but at the same time, all the stitches depict their loneliness, the fact that they are drawn into their thoughts, but they are not sharing these thoughts. They have small talk. They are having a small conversation, a simple conversation, but at the same time, they won't say what really matters and what they really have inside of themselves.
So very quickly, Joanna, your series is called It Will Be Okay. Have Ivorians been dealing with the trauma well? Very quickly.
Yes, I include myself in the issue. It's a very complicated situation because when you survive a difficult situation, you want to be better. You want to. It's a good way to release and to project yourself positively. But at the same time, I think that sometimes we
have to leave it there, Joanna.
Yes.
But congratulations. Thank you very much, and thank you for your company.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Bye.